There's a truth we don't talk about enough. That sometimes the place that is supposed to protect you is the very place you spend your whole life recovering from. For most people, home is where you rest. But as for me, home was where I learned how to listen for footsteps, how to hold my breath in the dark, and how to pretend I was asleep while fear sat wide awake beside me. My name is Richard. My childhood began with memories, not photographs or videos, just moments that live quietly in my bones. The kind you don't realize are precious until they become the only proof that happiness once existed. I remember mornings filled with light, the sound of my mother moving around the house, the smell of food cooking, my father's voice, calm and familiar, calling my name. I remember being lifted into the air, laughter spilling out of me like it had nowhere else to go. Back then, home felt safe. There were only 3 of us in my family: my father, my mother, and I. We were not rich, but we were complete. Nights ended early, doors closed swiftly and softly. Sleep came to me easily, and fear was not something I understood yet. My father used to come home before dark. Sometimes he brought small things, sweet stories, promises. Sometimes he carried nothing at all except his presence, and that was enough for me. He would sit with me, ask me about my day, listen like my words mattered. My mother, on the other hand, smiled more back then. Her laughter filled the house in a way that made everyone feel steady. She believed in tomorrow, and because she did, so did I. Those days felt endless. Before everything changed, love lived in the small things. Birthdays were never loud or expensive, but they were ours. My mother would wake up early in the morning, moving quietly through the house, pretending she wasn't doing anything special. But by afternoon, the smell of food would fill every corner. A small cake would sit on the table, sometimes homemade, sometimes store-bought with careful money, but it always felt like treasure. My father would clap his hands and sing off-key, his voice too loud, his smile even louder. I remember blowing out candles with my eyes tightly shut, wishing for things I didn't yet know I would one day lose. They would laugh, take photos, tell me how big I was getting. In those moments, I felt important. Family dinners were sacred. No matter how the day went, evenings brought us together. We sat at the same table, in the same chairs, sharing food and stories. My father talked about work. My mother listened, nodding, sometimes teasing him gently. I talked about school, about my friends, about things that felt huge to me and small to them, but they listened anyway. Those dinners taught me what belonging felt like. Sometimes we stayed at the table long after the plates were empty. My father would lean back, my mother would clean slowly, and I would sit there, not wanting the moment to end. The house felt full, not of things, but of warmth. Back then, weekends were simpler. We went for walks, sat together watching television. Sometimes my father carried me on his shoulder, and from up there, the world looked safe and endless. I didn't know how carefully my parents were holding our happiness. I didn't know how fragile it was. Even arguments were different back then. They ended in calm voices, apologies, quiet misunderstanding. Doors were never slammed. Silence was never threatening. Love always found its way back to the room. Those memories are important because they remind us that what came later wasn't all there ever was. They reminded me that my father was once gentle, that my mother once laughed freely, that our home once held peace, that love existed here, and maybe that is why losing it hurt so deeply. Because when everything fell apart, when alcohol replaced conversation, when midnight replaced dinner, when fear replaced safety, I had something to compare it to. I knew what home was supposed to feel like, and that knowledge stayed with me even when the house stopped being safe. I was 5 years old when everything broke. My father lost his job. The day didn't feel dramatic. There was no shouting, no breaking news, no moment that screamed, "This is where everything changes." It was just another day until it wasn't. I remember him coming home earlier than usual. That alone felt strange. He stood at the door longer than he normally did, like he was deciding whether to step inside or stay outside with whatever he was carrying. When he finally entered, his shoulders were slumped in a way I had never seen before. He didn't greet us the same way he usually did. No smile, no story, no joke waiting to be told. My mother noticed immediately. She asked questions in a careful voice, the kind adults use when they already know the answer but aren't ready to hear it. My father sat down slowly, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to warm them. "They let me go," he said. I didn't fully understand the words, but I understood the silence that followed them. The air felt heavier and the room felt smaller. My mother nodded, tried to be calm, tried to be strong. She told him it would be okay, that something else would come, that they would figure it out. And he nodded too, but something inside him broke quietly. The days that followed felt suspended. Mornings changed fast. My father no longer rushed out of the door. The sounds of keys stopped. The house stayed quiet long after the sun rose. I watched him sit for hours, staring at nothing, his mind somewhere I couldn't reach. At first, it didn't seem like the end of the world. Adults whispered, bills stacked quietly on the table. My parents argued in low voices after they thought I was asleep. The change didn't come loudly. It didn't announce itself with shouting or broken things. It arrived slowly, quietly, so quietly that at first we didn't even recognize it as change. It started with small absences. My father began coming home later than usual. Not midnight, just later than before. Family dinners were sometimes delayed. Sometimes he ate in silence. Sometimes he wasn't angry at all. At first, we didn't worry. Adults told themselves stories to make things feel normal. "He's just tired. It's been a long day. Things will settle." And I believed them. Because children trust the world they are given. But the house began to feel different. Laughter grew thinner. Conversations shortened. My mother's smile started to linger less, like it was learning how to leave the room before the rest of her did. My father, still tired, still hugged me, still asked about my day, but his eyes no longer rested where his body was. Something heavy had moved in. I remember the first bottle. It sat on the counter like it belonged there. No one explained it to me. No one warned me. My father said it helped him relax. My mother didn't argue, but she watched quietly, carefully, the way you watch something you don't yet trust. Birthdays changed too. The songs were still sung, but not as loudly. The photos still taken, but with less laughter behind the smiles. Family dinners grew shorter. The table emptied faster. Still, love was there. It just had to work harder. The nights were the first to break. My father began staying out longer. My mother stayed awake later. I learned to recognize the sound of the door opening. I learned that some footsteps meant safety and some meant uncertainty. I didn't know it then, but fear was beginning to introduce itself. Not fully yet, just enough to be noticed, just enough to change everything that came after. Midnight stopped meaning sleep. Midnight meant fear. I would hear the door slam. The sound alone was enough to make my heart race. His footsteps were heavy and even, and his voice slurred, sharp, and angry at the world. Sometimes he would shout my mother's name. Sometimes he would shout at no one at all. Bottles would hit the wall. Words would cut deeper than any object ever could. The first violent night didn't come with a warning. It came dressed as an ordinary evening, quiet, almost hopeful. My mother cooked dinner like she always did. I sat at the table waiting for my father to come home. We were still pretending things could return to the way they were. When the door finally opened, I knew something was wrong. His footsteps were uneven. His voice sounded different, thicker, heavier, like it had to push away its way out of him. The smell reached us before his words did. Alcohol arrived before him. My mother stood up slowly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse him. She asked if he was okay. That question changed everything. His face immediately hardened. His tone shifted. The warmth I once knew vanished in seconds, replaced by something sharp and unfamiliar. Words came out that didn't sound like his own. They were louder, angrier, and careless. I remember freezing. I remember sitting very still, hoping somehow that silence would make me invisible. My mother tried to calm him. She spoke gently, the way you speak to someone standing on the edge of something dangerous. But alcohol doesn't listen. Depression doesn't reason. His anger filled the room. A chair scraped loudly against the wall. Something hit the wall. My heart began to race so hard I thought it might escape my chest. And I didn't understand what was happening, only that the man in front of me no longer felt like my father. Then he turned towards us, toward me. My mother moved quickly. She stepped between us without thinking, her body becoming a shield. She grabbed my hand, her grip tight. Trembling, I could feel fear moving through her fingers into mine. "Go!" she whispered. We ran out of the house, out into the night. My feet barely touched the ground. The air was cold, but I didn't feel it. Fear burned hotter than anything else. We stood outside for a long time. I don't remember where. I don't remember how long. I only remember the silence after the shouting, the kind that rings in your ears and refuses to leave. That night, something inside me broke. Not loudly, not all at once, just enough for fear to move in. From that day on, I learned that love could change without notice, that safety could disappear in seconds, that the people you trust most can become strangers when pain is left untreated. That was the night my childhood ended. The morning after the first violent night was a quiet one, quiet in a way that felt unnatural. The sun came up like nothing had happened. Birds sang, neighbors went about their lives, but inside our house, silence pressed against the wall. My father was there, not angry, not loud, just distant. He avoided our eyes. He moved around as if the night before belonged to someone else. No apology came, no explanation. The silence itself became the message. My mother spoke softly that morning. Too softly, like she was afraid sound might wake up something dangerous. I sat at the table, staring at my hands, unsure of how to act around the man who was still my father but no longer felt like one. No one talked about what happened, and that was how it began to repeat itself. The violence didn't come every day. That would have been easier to understand. Instead, it came unpredictably, just often enough to keep us afraid, just rarely enough to keep hope alive. Alcohol became a regular visitor. With it came anger, mood swings, and nights that ended in fear. Some evenings were calm, some ended in shouting, some ended with my mother gripping my hand ready to run. I learned how to watch him. I learned to study his eyes when he walked in, to listen to his footsteps, to smell the air for alcohol before he spoke a word. My body learned things before my mind could explain them. Food stopped being certain. Some nights, my mother cooked carefully, hoping for peace. The table would be set, plates waiting, the smell of food filling the house. Those moments always felt fragile, like glass. Sometimes my father would come in just as we were about to eat. If he was drunk, the mood shifted instantly. Words would be thrown, anger would rise, and suddenly no one was hungry anymore. Plates stayed untouched, food went cold, and hunger became familiar. Eating stopped being nourishment. It became a risk. School suffered quietly. Some mornings after nights filled with fear, I could wake up. My body was tired, but my mind was exhausted. Other times I went to school carrying everything with me: fear, shame, hunger, and confusion. Teachers noticed my absence. They noticed my silence. But they didn't see the nights. They didn't hear the shouting. They didn't understand why homework felt impossible and survival took all my energy. Sometimes my father would come home in the middle of the night. Those nights meant no sleep, and no sleep meant no school. I missed lessons. I missed tests. I missed chances. Childhood slipped away quietly, one missed day at a time. Violence became a pattern. Not consistent, but consistent enough to shape my life. It taught me to expect disruption, to never fully relax, to live in a state of waiting, waiting for the door to open, waiting for voices to rise, waiting for food to be taken away, and waiting for another night to undo whatever peace the day had built. My mother grew tired, not weak tired. She carried fear in her body and love in her heart at the same time. She protected me in ways I only understood now. And me? I became tiny, small, and fragile. Not in size, but in presence. I spoke less. I laughed less. I learned how to disappear inside myself, because disappearing felt safer than being seen. This was no longer just one bad night. It was now our life. And this was how a home slowly teaches a child that survival is more important than comfort, and silence is sometimes the loudest language of all. Somewhere along the way, I learned how to live without moving. I was still there, still sitting at the table, still walking to school when I could, but emotionally, I began to pull away. It wasn't a decision, it was an instinct, a child's way of surviving when staying present hurt too much. I stopped expecting peace. I stopped hoping dinners would stay calm. I stopped believing silence meant safety. I learned not to ask questions, not to show emotion, not to need too much. I built walls inside myself because walls felt safer than doors. At school, my teachers called me quiet, reserved, mature for my age. They didn't know my silence was exhaustion, that my maturity was fear pretending to be control. At home, I watched my father disappear further into alcohol. His eyes were often glassy now, his words harsher, his patience thinner. Some nights, he didn't recognize how much damage he was doing. Other nights, I think he did and drank anyway. As I grew older, something else grew with me: awareness. I began to understand that this wasn't normal, that love wasn't supposed to hurt like this, that fear wasn't supposed to live in our chest all the time. I started seeing my mother differently, not just as my parent, but as a woman carrying more than anyone should. And I began to feel something new: anger. Not explosive anger like my father's, but quiet, heavy anger. The kind that sits in your throat and tightens your chest. The kind that asks questions you can't ignore anymore. One night it happened. He came home drunk again, loud, careless, angry at the world. The air shifted like it always did. My mother went quiet, and my body tensed immediately. But this time round, something inside me just shrunk. When he raised his voice, I spoke. My voice shook, but it didn't disappear. "Stop!" The room froze. He turned toward me, surprised, not just by my words, but by the fact that I heard them at all. Children like me weren't supposed to speak back. We were supposed to stay invisible. My heart was pounding. Fear was still there, but so was something stronger. "Enough!" I told him he was hurting us, that he was tearing the family apart, that alcohol had stolen the man we used to be. My words weren't perfect. They weren't calm, but they were honest. For a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. Shame, confusion, and pain. Then anger rushed back in to cover it. He shouted, "I didn't." That was the night I understood something clearly for the first time. I cannot save him. And staying would cost me myself. I choose myself. I choose safety. I choose a future that wasn't built on fear. Even now I carry the past with me. Trauma doesn't disappear when you escape it. It lingers in reactions, in memories, in that body. But I'm no longer trapped. And I know this now. What happened to me wasn't my fault. My silence was survival, and my escape was my strength.